Good morning and welcome back to the Brick by Brick podcast with Ronald Paulius. We were on a hiatus, but we are back and we're alive and we are getting back into this with an interview. So I got Paul Brown here. He's with Real Quick Funds. He's also an owners club. And so I just want to highlight him and interview him. Paul, tell us where you're from and where you're at now and what you're doing.
Yeah. I live just south of Salt Lake City in Lehigh, and like you said, we run a lending business and then a few other things. And I've been in Owners Club the last couple of years. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah,
Excited
yeah,
to have this conversation.
yeah. Thanks for joining us. What I want to do is ask you a couple questions. My audience is there. Some of them are W-2 workers, and they're wanting to get out of that grind, that day-to-day grind, the rat race. Others are already out, and they have mindset issues. They're trying to navigate and work through. And so, what I want to talk about for is going to be a two-part episode. The first episode, I want to just hear tell the people what did you do before you got into what you're doing now.
Yeah. Let me try to make this as short as I can because I'm an old guy. So there was a lot of stuff I did until now. I went a very traditional route. I think I went the most traditional route that exists in the world as far as conservative traditional. I was an engineer. I was doing robotics in like the 90s.
Oh, okay.
And went from engineering to grad school, getting an MBA and going into finance. Worked at a bank, ended up working for insurance companies, and spent most of the last 15 years internationally, living in
Oh,
Tokyo or Singapore, working for insurance companies, but essentially running businesses. Very W-2. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
completely one rung of the ladder after another rung of the ladder, you know, titles, the getting a C-class job, like the whole like rat
Yeah.
race, ladder climbing,
Degree.
like whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that just how you grew up? Like, hey, get a degree, get a stable job, and climb that corporate.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was always in my head is, I amazing mom that was a single mother. And I think I was like 12 years old, and my mom said, one day you're probably going to have to support me. I have three older sisters. My oldest brother had just passed away in a motorcycle accident at the time. Only in my adult years did I start to somewhat appreciate how rough my mom's life was. Going through a divorce, losing her child, trying to find a job and working. As a little kid, being that poor was a little frustrating at times, but I look back and I think, man, my mom was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And she's always an amazing mother, but she got into real estate
Oh, okay.
and started making a career of real estate. And I think she started that at like 50. So she was
Okay.
50. Maybe this is a message for your audience. She hadn't worked a job for 20 something years. She had been raising 5 kids. Not that she hadn't been working, but she hadn't been getting paid to work. She ended up in real estate. By the time she retired, she had 5 properties completely paid off. And she has lived off of her properties that,
Oh, wow.
they completely support her life. She makes 8 or 9 grand a month
Yeah,
off
yeah.
of her properties. And she started at 50 something. So
Where are these
anybody that
properties
says like,
are
I'm
at?
too old to start this,
Yeah.
that's just a weak excuse. And you need to look in the mirror
Wow.
and, ask yourself how some lady that graduated from high school that hadn't worked in 30 years could pull it off, but you can't,
Man, wow.
but in a way, I guess I kind of did a similar thing. I did the W-2 thing because I just grew up with that conservative mindset of go to school, get an engineering degree because engineers always have jobs, go do this. And then I realized I loved engineering school. I didn't love being an engineer. So then I went to grad school, ended up in finance. The market was really horrible the year I graduated, took a job with a bank because that's where the offers were.
Mm.
Learned a lot from that side. And then had a question. I was at work. My job sounded way cooler than it was. I was hedging a $28 billion asset. And it sounds really cool. It was so freaking boring. And I called my wife and I said, I think I just saw the end of the internet because I wasn't allowed to do anything besides hedging because you had to be able to respond so quickly. So I knew every sports score of every sport in the world, I think, because I couldn't get involved in other projects and get tied into things because that's what I did is hedge that asset for the company. And I said, an insurance company called me and asked if I'd take a job with them. There's no way I'm working for an insurance company,
Yeah.
but it's 3 days in Connecticut for free. I hate to do this, but will you let me go on a vacation alone? And my wife's like, whatever, go do it. And I took that job with Travelers Insurance, and it was so fun behind the scenes. It's
Okay.
such a complex industry. It's incredibly difficult. Most people don't understand this, but like an auto insurance company is trying to make 4% profit.
4%.
Yeah. We would target 4% profit. And most years they don't succeed. So when people are like, those insurance, it's volume. It is not margin, right? And it is
Wow.
so complicated and difficult to price the future of somebody. It's really easy to price a shirt that you manufacture. You
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
right? You can kind of put together materials that come in,
Mhm.
labor that it takes, the machine capital on the machines you're using, and then some margin of error, right? And you kind of put, and that's what I did when I was an engineer working a different kind of production. It's pretty hard to say how much is this person going to cost me in the future because of their driving. Like
Yeah.
it's a really, so I
Interesting.
love that. I really got into that. I thought it was a lot of fun. I started running states. You would run geographies and be responsible for the whole P&L. And then I got an opportunity at one point when I was working for a different company, Farmers Insurance in the West Coast. They're owned by Zurich. Zurich asked me to go over to Japan and help run the Japan business. And I had lived in Japan a number of times. I was a volunteer missionary there when I was a younger kid, and
Okay.
had done a little short stint as a engineer at a manufacturing plant there not long after right when I was graduating. So I was super happy to go back there. My wife actually grew up there. We met in Indiana, but she grew up there. So this whole long story of going through this really traditional life and then the tender mercies from heaven really dictate a lot of that. And for me, there was a series of events that led up to me being right in the right place at the right time to get offered a C-class job in Japan to go help run a business in a place I love, in a place my wife obviously wanted to let her kids see. And then we ended up in Asia for most of the next 15, 16 years after that, either
Wow.
in Tokyo or in Singapore. Absolutely loved it, had a ton of fun, ended up with AIG running part of their international business. And then one day I decided that I'm done and I quit.
So let's talk about
And
that
that was a transition.
because the people are listening. There I was a high school teacher and I did not love my
Nice.
job. I was at a public high school and the kids ran the school. Some would say one person called it's basically a jail and the inmates are running the show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad was a junior high school teacher, and that's why he retired. Yeah.
Yes. Like it was quite insane. And I was only in it for a year and 2 months. Like one school year and 2 months. I have a master's in educational leadership. I said to myself, this is what I'm gonna do, teach on the side because I'm also a pastor, an associate
Mm,
pastor in
awesome.
Oklahoma City. And so I thought that was gonna be the way to make money. Well, that didn't work out because I could not stand it. And that was just my first year. We're listening
Dang.
to your story, Paul, and I can see myself saying and others, man, if I could if I could travel the world for 15 years and it's paid, if I could get a C-class opportunity, work something that is interesting, and you obviously had a passion, maybe not passion, but a love for the technicalities of figuring out insuring people in the future, and all the other things you did. What made you say, "Let me leave something
Yeah.
I love"?
So let me step back a touch. What I love is building. And I learned that about myself. I was that way as a kid. That's why I went into engineering. There's a lot of creativity in building, right? You're
Okay.
creating. And so I know we all, use a one book and put everybody into the boxes of being either a visionary or a whatever. I don't see the world that way at all. I see the world as builders and managers. Some people love to build and create, and some people like to make things efficient and manage them. That's my experience in life. The people that I come across tend to be in those camps. Me and my wife are in opposite camps, right? And so every time I would change a job, it was because I was done building and it was now
Ah,
just maintaining a business. I turned it around. Now it's
okay.
profitable and growing. I have no interest in a profitable and growing business. I want out,
I see.
right?
Okay.
And so I had a ton of fun in my career being able to go do those things. In fact, and I don't say this like this is going to come off more snotty than I mean it, but these were like childhood, like wow moments for me. When I got hired at AIG, it was the global CEO that because somebody was missing, somebody didn't have a job. I had to interview with the person that was the global CEO because he had to cover down that next job. So I flew to New York and had to be allowed up to his floor, right? And like the whole floor was basically him. There were like 8 executive assistants, and I was taken into this big boardroom. His office, which was the same size, had a side door into the boardroom. Like it was completely everything you think about when you think of just like corporate America. And
Wow.
I was like a 12-year-old, like in a candy store, just going, oh my gosh, where am I at? This is so cool. And this is the reason I loved it though. He walked in with a sheet of paper. He had like a sheet of paper and it had one line across the middle and 2 lines down it. So it was 9 or 6 boxes. Maybe it had 2 lines both ways.
Okay.
9 boxes on it. Okay. And he had a word. He had one thing in each of the 9 boxes. The bottom left box said Japan Auto Insurance. He
Okay.
put this was my whole interview. He put the paper on the table. We were sitting at the corner of this huge boardroom table. He was on one chair, I was on the other. He put the paper on the table. He pointed to that. So I don't even remember reading the other 8. I don't even know what the other 8 were. He said, these are the 9 worst problems in the world for our business. And he said, you have one job. Take that off my paper. I don't want Japan Auto Insurance on my paper of the 9 worst problems. That's all.
Okay.
And I said, well, how much leeway do I have? Like, how much flexibility do I
Yeah.
have?
What does that mean?
And he said, what do you need? I said, well, what if I need to actually run off a lot of the business because it's bad business? He said, how much are you going to have to run off? It was like a $5 billion business. I said, I don't know. What if I have to run off like hundreds of millions of dollars? He said, I just had somebody run off $2 billion in the US market to fix a business. Do you need to run off more than $2 billion? And I'm like, again, I'm like sitting there going, holy crap, I can't believe I'm sitting here, right? I'm not sitting there like, yeah, bro, right? I'm
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
I just looked at him, I was like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna have to destroy $2 billion. Or he said, good, do what you need to do. Good
Wow.
luck. That was my whole interview. We just had the whole interview. And then I walked out, I was like, what just happened? I don't even know
That
what
is
just happened.
high level interviewing right there.
It's so weird. So that
Insane.
was what excited me though, was somebody saying, we have a business shrinking and losing money. Go fix that.
Wow. Yeah.
By the grace of God and a lot of luck, a year or two later, we made like, just in the Japan business alone, we made something like $194 million in profit. So it was a pretty decent year for just that one little business. It was only a couple billion with those margins. So I always loved, sorry to do so much backstory, but I always loved going in and being part of building. Like, how do we fix this?
Yeah.
How do we build this? How do we make this work? When it was kind of humming, I started getting really uncomfortable. Like, I would feel the anxiety build in me. I would start not wanting to go to work. And I'm somebody that, like, there are times in my career that I was averaging 14 hours a day, every day,
Yeah.
month after month after month.
Yeah.
Not because I felt like I needed to be there. I just freaking love it. Like, I really love to, like, go build. But as soon as it's something that's fixed, 3 hours feels like an eternity. I feel like I'm just being dragged through broken glass the whole time.
Okay.
So I hit that point about 5 years before I left. But to your point, and I'm saying this all, I hope this doesn't come off snotty at all, but I was in a job I didn't even know that world existed growing up. I grew up where we ate food provided by our church because we couldn't afford to feed ourselves as a family.
Yeah.
I never knew that there were people that had their company pay for $1 million homes. You know, I think there are times where rent was 15 grand a month that the company was paying in different places, where they paid for their kids to go to private international schools that are, you know, $20, $30, $40,000 a year each. We have 4 kids. You know, you can start adding things up, where every year we were sent home on our home visit in business class. There was a year where my 2 youngest kids were so small, they sat next to each other in a flatbed bed watching a movie, right? And I felt so guilty that their other chair was left empty because some dude's back there that, you know, had a bad back. This isn't because I'm cool. It's because there's just companies that have so much and they take such good care of certain people in their company. I didn't know that stuff existed. I had no idea that world existed. So when I got into it, it was just, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is so much fun. You have to go to work. You know, you need to go deal with the Kenya business. There is no work in that sentence to me. It's, I'm flying to Nairobi and spending 10 days, bro. Let's go, right?
Yeah.
And so I absolutely loved it until it stopped being building. And then it just started being, oh my gosh, every day I feel like my brain is shrinking in my head. Every day I feel like I am deteriorating as a human being. I'm getting paid way more than I ever thought I would ever get paid for anything ever in my life. You know, I just didn't grow up in a world where that was part of anything I ever thought of. And I was in this huge dilemma of, how do you quit a job like that? And in fact, I was in Tokyo. I quit my job. So yeah, I was in Tokyo. I had dealt with this for about 3 years.
Okay.
That I was just like, oh, I'm done with this. And I went to my boss. So my boss is the CEO of the company there when I was working there. And I went to him and I said, Bob. And he said, you're done. Like before I said it, he goes, you're done. And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh yeah, I know you're done. And I said, I got to quit. I can't do this anymore. And he said, how about you just drop your 3 jobs in Japan? You just keep your international chief underwriting officer job and you go live somewhere else like Singapore.
So he wanted to keep.
I was like, Bob, that's not a job. That's like 10 hours a week. And he said, I know, but it's chief underwriting officer for the international portfolio. I said, but it's 10 hours a week, Bob. And he said, nobody knows that but you. Chief underwriting officer for $5 billion. Like that's and so I went and did that for a couple, like 2-3 years in Singapore. Okay. And the whole time just struggled, and sorry to be so long-winded, but ultimately it ended up being, okay, the money and all that stuff is not worth suffering. So I'm not doing this for that, even though I never dreamed of that world. I felt like a kid being just placed in Disneyland, and you like free reign. At some point you go, you know what? No, like I want something. So that shift was one, but then I have 4 kids. So that was the harder part. And the reason that it lasted 5 years and not 1 was each year, it was a conversation with my kids about, are we in a place that you guys want to leave this world? We didn't spoil our kids, so it wasn't about money to them. they never got the stuff the other kids at school were getting, right? All those like snotty kids. It was more, hey, are you in a place? And so one year, my oldest was a junior, and he's like, nah, Dad, I don't really want to move for my senior year to the U.S.
Mm.
You know, can we stay another year? So then I stayed.
Yeah,
And then, you know, when you have 4 kids, it's kind of hard. Like,
yeah.
at what point is it like working? And so it wasn't until my second was graduating from school in Singapore, we said, okay, my third boy really wants to play football. He can get in a year and a half still in the U.S. Let's go do that. My daughter will make it work. And so and I quit. And exactly like when I started my job, the person above me was gone. It was a different global CEO, but that's who I had to quit to. And so he was so nice that he kind of fired me.
Okay.
So I quit,
Okay. Yeah.
but everybody knows there's a big difference if you quit or if you get laid off or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So long-term bonuses, 401ks, like all that stuff vests and stays with you. He was so generous and kind. Again, like my whole career was just stamped with great fortune and what I consider personally blessings and the hand of God in my life. Just
Yeah. Wow.
not earned, just grace over and over and over. And that was such a blessing to my family because it cushioned the ride. So what I would say to the audience is, don't do what I did. Don't quit your job and then go find an income.
Yeah.
Don't,
Yeah.
you know, keep your job because that is the golden goose that you get to keep having a decent life and while you figure something out. I did an extreme thing that is probably not recommended, but I was so blessed and fortunate in life that I kind of had the next year paid for so that I had running room. I wish everybody could get that. Everybody deserves that. I didn't deserve it. So everybody but me probably deserves it. But you never turn your nose up at grace, right? Like nobody denies that in their life. And so what I did was I came back to the US with the intent in investing in real estate. So I
Okay.
quit. I moved back to where family was close. My
Yeah.
parents are older. That was a big part of quitting too. I got 2 great years with my dad before he passed. And
At this point, has your mom already gotten into real estate, got a bunch of properties? Her
oh,
first.
my mom had done that she got into it when I was like 12. Yeah. So
Oh,
my
okay.
mom's retired by the time I came. In fact, before I came back, a few summers before that, I helped move my mom into a retirement facility and stuff. My mom had finished that, done that. She's had her houses paid off for years.
Gotcha.
And it's so nice. It's so awesome that it's funny when I was 12, she's like, you're going to have to take care of me one day. And not, you know,
Yeah.
it took her 10 or 15 years to build up what completely supports our life forever.
Wow.
Right. Because properties that are paid off are just an annuity. You're
Yeah.
just bringing in the change and paying property taxes. Right.
Wow. Okay. So
And so
you came back
it's
to
been
the
awesome.
state, came back to America with the intent to jump right into real estate, and you had a 365-day runway to figure that out.
Yeah, so lucky. So freaking lucky. I mean,
Uh,
and none of this do I take for granted. Everything was a blessing in my life. Everything could have gone the exact opposite way, and I could be a junior engineer right now, still somewhere, you know, just as easy as it happened.
Scared because of AI, I bet.
Oh, and if that would have happened, I would have been afraid because of AI. Yeah. Instead, I was like, you know, my last trip with AIG before I left was a trip that was Israel and Kenya, a combined trip from Singapore. Dude,
Okay.
just saying that out loud to me 20 years ago and saying, you know what, for work, you're going to leave Singapore. You're going to go to Israel for, you know, a week or so. You're going to take a couple extra days on the end to go spend some time in the Galilee because you like it up there. And then you're going to fly to Kenya and you're going to take 4 personal days at the end. And you and the guy that you go with are going to go to a safari and watch a lion hunt. Like, if somebody would have said that, I would have probably just smacked them, you know, and laughed. Like, none of it earned. all
Oh,
of it just blessings in life. But you know what's funner than that? Running my own business. I freaking
really?
love running my own business. It is
Wow.
so much bloody fun. And it was so hard the last few years. So I came back. I thought I was going to get into investing in real estate. I owned a couple of houses that we had bought along the way. And somebody called me up and said, "Hey, will you lend this guy money? He's doing a fix and flip." And I don't know what possessed me to do it, because it was probably the dumbest thing a human can do. It was second position lending.
Okay.
Like, like I'm an idiot, so I'm doing it lending. Sorry for anybody that does second position, but it is super high risk lending with somebody I had no history with, right? And I lent him money. I lent him $89,000 for a 25% return.
89,000.
Yeah. Like I did the highest
The
risk
first
lending with
deal.
with 80. It was like, there was
Oh,
nothing smart about it, but thankfully Grace still had my back for a little bit. I hadn't started learning from mistakes and lending on my first deal, and that paid off, and I didn't like die right at the beginning. But we did that for like a year, year and a half.
okay.
That turned into a lending business. So that one event turned into, wait, I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Okay.
actually do it right. I'm going to get the right contracts. I started
Yeah.
really digging into it, building a business, and then realized this is so stressful. Lending in second position, you're losing money sometimes on deals because they foreclose. You're completely underwater. You're not going to buy it out. It's not worth it. People are bankrupt. You can't. Your personal guarantee is like toilet paper, you know. And so I turned about a year and a half ago and said, I'm leaving this completely, and I'm going to only do transactional funding. So I'm only going to lend into escrow accounts and be paid back out of escrow accounts. And I'm going to never let my money go to a human being anywhere. Right.
Okay.
And I started at zero again. So if anybody's like starting out their business and they had really bad revenues, my revenue last January 2025 was $200.
Ah,
I could have made $200 selling lemonade on a stand, like in my neighborhood with a
wow.
8-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I made no money at all, but
Wow.
technically I actually did make $200. So like that's December. We probably did like, it was one of our best. It was our best month for sure. By then we did like, what was it? I think it was like 140,000.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
$140.
Not $140. We didn't go down. Yeah, we went up.
Oh, wow.
We had
Wow.
like a 60 something $1,000 week recently,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
like things can change, things can build. When you're at $200, it's not over.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first 6 months last year, I bet I made less than $5,000
Wow.
in the
So
new venture.
you're getting into a lot of good stuff. Let's
Yeah.
we'll transition to our second episode, but to end this one, you you look back and you say there was a bunch of grace, there was a bunch of luck, a bunch of favor, and but at each point you took like you walked through the door. You didn't just not do anything. You took the
I took a
opportunity,
ton of
yeah,
risk.
took a ton of risk. For the
Yeah.
person listening here who's in their W-2, they they might love it, they might not. I want you to give some insight to both. For the person who doesn't love it, for the person who does love it, in light of them wanting to get out into real estate, entrepreneurship, starting a business, something in that field,
Mm.
what would you say to the person who's like, man, I'm at a good job that I don't like. I'm at a good job that I do like, but I want to get out.
Yeah. So a couple of things I lived my life by were that there's an investment period in life. It's
Mm,
not all the harvest,
I love
right?
that.
The whole year is not the
I love that.
fall.
I
And
love
I
that.
accepted that there were periods of my life that were spring and summer. And that in spring and summer, you work your butt off so that in the fall you can harvest.
Yeah.
Not everybody looks at it that way. So my advice is going to come from somebody that sees life that way. I worked my freaking butt off. I deliberately was the first person at work and the last one to leave at almost everywhere I worked.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And because I also tried to always educate myself and stay up to date on things, I think I did okay too. You buy a lot of favor with people that control your career by working hard.
Yeah.
Because when you work hard, you show that you are committed to the company that they are also committed to.
Yeah.
And that gains favor with them emotionally, right? And they
Yep.
will pull you up more because you're also sacrificing for what they're sacrificing for. So that's my advice when people are working W-2s is if you're going to give it that much of your life, don't get nitpicky about the extra hour. You're giving it a lot of your life. Like give it enough that you can create a bigger harvest. Don't do the minimum. Nobody promotes the dude that does the minimum. The lady that's like, I'll do exactly the minimum number of whatever. So I would say, give it your all if you're going to do it at all. The second thing is, I did not deem where I lived or location something that I should limit my life by. Right. So I was in the planting and working phase of my life, not the harvest phase. And therefore, if I could take risk and move to Connecticut for a better job that paid more, that had a better title, that had something I could leverage, that opened more doors for me in my future, then I would take that risk. I would go and so I moved companies and moved locations and lived in places that I didn't grow up in and lived away from family. And my wife is a rock star, raising kids in our home without a strong support network. I mean, my wife literally moved. Of our 4 kids, I think she was pregnant maybe 3 times on moves. Like
No.
absolute, just
Oh no.
amazing human being. But
Not fun.
we worked together because our goal was I work for the family, right? And so the whole focus was raising the kids is number one. She didn't want to have the strain of needing to feel like she had to do anything except that full-time job. And so before we got married, the comment to me was, I don't care if you have to work 7 jobs, you provide. That's your job, right? And so we ended up, that's just how we are. Everybody's different. And so that worked for us. But my thing is, I never let location limit me. I never let being unwilling to work limit me. And I always took the risk of going and doing something different, going and doing the scary thing by taking a job that I don't know if I can actually do, right? I changed industries maybe 4 times. Those are the things that I felt like really helped a career. And I see my friends that chose to let location be a limiter or something else. It dampened what they could do. Now, maybe the benefits of that were worth it to them, right? We all make our own. But then when you get to the point you say, okay, I like my W-2, but I want to do something else, or I don't really like my W-2. My advice is never run away from anything. And I always talk to employees about this. Never, ever run away. Always run to. Okay. Never leave a job because I hate my boss. No, find another, work somewhere else, do something, find some other avenue, work harder. Never run away, but always run to. If you find something that is a little bit scary and you think it's going to open up doors and it makes you nervous and it's a better opportunity, run to that. Quit your job and run to that, right? And in the end, that's what I did to leave a W-2, is I decided to run to something I wanted to spend more of my time in. I wanted to control my life more. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to take that jump. I wanted to take that risk. And then, 6 months into it, I questioned myself, but I wanted to. And that's the advice I'd give is be careful about running away from things. Run to things and spend time on the side. I spent a lot of time on the side during my career learning things. Keep learning things. Like if you're not messing with agentic AI right now as a person, start.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a pro, but start. It's going to open up doors. Like do the things that open doors, right?
Do
So
the thing.
sorry, I'm a little bit preachy. Forgive me. I don't mean to like, but that's my view on things. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on this episode. And I think the highlight there is do the things that open doors. Like if you, I mean, that's for you, that's for me, that's for those listening, because I believe that there is always new opportunities ahead of us. Meaning, even if we have the most amazing job right now, the most amazing business, the most amazing team, there's always new and better opportunity ahead of us. And the way we prepare ourselves for those opportunities is by getting better ourselves. Like
Yeah.
to
There's
be able,
more and bigger blessings. Yeah.
yes, uh, to be able to have C-level employees, you have to be a B-level leader. To be able to get B-level employees, you have to grow to an A-level leader. And so, if you do the things that open doors, guys, you will find your life could be so different in 6 months, in 1 year, in 1 month, if you did the hard things. Paul, thank you for being on here with us. Where can people reach out to you on social media to continue the conversation?
Yeah. My YouTube and Instagram and those tend to be at Paul Brown Funds with an underscore between the words Paul underscore Brown underscore funds, FUNDS. And then we also run a community in school for people that are looking to make some money, start that little journey on the side, start making a few bucks on the side. We help people with transactional funding, and we do that in school, and it's called Transactional Funding Hub. That's it. The
Look at
school,
that.
SKOOL.com. That school, not SCHOOL. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll
But
make sure
yeah,
that's in the notes. And guys, thanks for listening.
thanks.
Stay tuned for our second episode coming out next week.